All right, y'all, I just want to show you this. This is how you should strap down any motorcycle. It is much, much more secure this way than doing it up on your handlebars. You just get these straps and put them around the forks. You'll notice how it goes out more sideways because it's further down than up here. And so up here, it's really putting a lot of stress on your handlebars. You could bend them even if you crank it down too much. Here, it's just your solid forks. It works on pretty much any bike out there. This won't scuff the finish at all because it's just cloth. And I've just got 2 of them right now. I had 4. I just got up here to the mountains. But you can see, even with 2 of them, it's just the whole trailer moves with the bike. So anyway, that is by far the best way to strap your bike down. I wish I'd learned that earlier during my riding career. All right, everyone. Welcome to the 2nd edition of my video vlog for riding safely, providing you all tips. Hope you enjoyed the beginning there, strapping down your bike. I wish somebody had taught me that much earlier in my riding career, because I used to tie my motorcycles down by the handlebars, and they just weren't quite as stable, and I also kind of felt like I was bending or flexing the bars a little bit, and that's never good. It can affect your riding position, can affect the way the bike handles. So anyway, I'm up in the mountains now. It's a beautiful day. Appalachian Mountains here in North Georgia, and I'm making my way through some real small back roads to Richard Russell Scenic Byway. For those of you who've ridden in North Georgia, you've very likely ridden this road. It's a great curvy road, kind of like a miniature Chilhowee Skyway up in Tennessee, North Carolina, which is real close to Deals Gap, one of the most famous motorcycling roads in existence. I used to live in Knoxville, so I rode that all the time. But I went ahead and turned the video camera on because these roads are pretty typical of the types of tiny back roads that a lot of motorcyclists will find themselves on. And what I mean by that is they're really tight, they're really narrow, and they've got crap all over them. And you just have to be really aware of this fine sand, grit, gravel, grass. Look at this washout. Anytime you see a gravel driveway on a hillside, chances are in the last rain it washed out some big chunks of gravel, as well as some small, finer silt, which can wreak havoc with your traction. So I'm kind of taking my time going through here. I'm meandering my way through this road. Uphill here, it's kind of open, so I can open it up a little bit and not worry about traction problems. And I'm going to slow back down because that's kind of a blind curve there. One of my best tips for you, and obviously, look, see how it goes to shade, goes to moisture covered roads from the rains last night. It's pretty typical as well. And so I'm just taking my time. I'm not leaning over very much at all. But it looks like I've loved your all's feedback, and it's just really cool that I've got people from all over the world that have watched my first video and feel like they learned something from it. Here, this corner is just full of garbage here. And so I'm going to try to keep this pretty wide open for all types of bikes. Chances are a lot of you are on Harleys, a lot of you on maybe dual sports, sport bike riders, and so there's different riding styles for those bikes, but what is universal in the motorcycling community is curvy roads, the love of riding curvy roads. See, like this would be an awesome curve if it was clear, but it is full, it is covered with crap. You can just see it all over the road. See this gravel here, stuff from the trees, so I'm taking it easy, not going through that very fast. If you are, this one's really bad, if you are hitting a road for the first time and you're tempted to really get on it, I caution you not to really get going fast the first time you go on a road. Even if it's a road you've ridden many, many times and you're aware of the curves and everything, you don't know what's in the curves and they're blind. Like this is totally blind. I have no idea what's around it. I could come around this and look, perfect. I had no idea that was there. but it just made my point. Little serendipity. Shit all over the road. And if you come around it cocked over real far, then you could break traction. Once your wheels have broken traction with the road, it takes a skilled motorcyclist to save it. Because if you start to wash the front, which is the most common way you're going to lose traction from a newbie or a maybe moderate rider, you're going to chop the throttle. You're going to feel the bike start to slide, and you're going to be like, oh shit, this isn't good, and you're going to close the throttle. And when you close the throttle, your weight shifts forward, right? So does the weight of the bike, and that weight goes forward on the front tire. And so the front tire has already started to wash on you, which is what caused you to chop the throttle because it scared you. And then it's trying to regain traction, and racers can start to lose the front and regain traction. But for your typical motorcyclist, when you chop the throttle, that puts even more weight on that front tire, and any chance of it regaining traction and keeping you from going down are totally nullified. It's going to continue to wash out because now the whole weight of the motorcycle has been pushed forward when you chop that throttle closed. So that right there is just an example of a real typical low side accident. Low side is the accident that you want to be in at all times. What that means is you're leaned over, you lose traction typically with your front tire, and your front tire never regains traction. The bike just kind of goes out from under you, and most riders help that along by chopping the throttle. And the bike just slides right out from under you, and you fall down. And you fall on your side, your shoulder, your legs. Here we go. This is Richard Russell. It's a great ride, and I should have gotten in front of this truck because he's going to be slow. He's going to be slow. I think there's a place for me to pass him up here, so I'll probably do that because he's crawling. So just keep that in mind. My goal is to talk to you all through this ride on the Richard Russell, and this is not going to be nearly as long of a vlog as my first one. I know my first one got real long. I'm kind of long-winded sometimes. The other type of crash in the curvy roads is a high side. Typically, a high side occurs when it happens when you're riding aggressively, and usually you're on a higher powered motorcycle, sport bike, high-end dual sport, something along those lines, something that puts a lot of power down to the rear wheel. And so what happens with that high side is you get on the throttle a little hard coming out of a curve, and your rear wheel breaks traction instead of your front tire. And so then when your rear wheel breaks traction, it starts to slide out next to you like this. So your rear wheel, low side, the bike just kind of comes out from under you. High side, the rear wheel steps out. Your front wheel still has traction, it's still planted. And so what happens with a high side, also very difficult to save, perhaps even more difficult to save. And I'm not going to pass him here. He's moving along pretty well, so I might just let him get way ahead and talk to y'all for a minute. But what happens with the high side is you'll chop the throttle, like, oh shit, that doesn't feel right, the bike's stepping out next to me. And when you do that, the rear wheel that had broken loose and is spinning really fast suddenly regains traction because you've cut the power to the rear wheel. It is not spinning anymore because you are no longer giving it any throttle. And so therefore the rear wheel grips again. It grabs the pavement because it's not spinning. And so it has the friction available to grab that pavement. And when it does so, it's violent. It's violent. That pavement and the wheel stick together again, and it snaps that wheel right back in line because your rear wheel always wants to follow your front wheel. And so it snaps right back in line, and that violent, super fast blink of an eye snap launches you straight up out of your seat. And so literally you can be ejected 4 or 5 feet into the air above your motorcycle in a high side, and that's all she wrote. You're gonna probably get hurt, probably gonna break a bone or something, because you're gonna be up in the air. Think about the physics. And motorcycling, safe motorcycling, a lot of it is about physics. When you fall on a low side, I'm only like, you know, my shoulders are only about 3 feet above the ground right now. So the actual fall to the ground is only 3 feet high. That's like falling out of your chair. But then, of course, you're moving 40 miles an hour, so you're going to slide a while. So the actual impact to the ground is not too bad in a low side because you're only maybe 3 feet above the ground. Then you're going to slide for a bit and hopefully not run into something. That's why if you've ever watched motorcycle racing, they low side all the time and they are almost always just fine. And the reason why is because they just slide along the asphalt and they've got leathers on that protects their skin, and then usually they get up and they run over their bike and they try to keep racing because they're fine. They only fell about 3 feet to the ground and then they just slid a long time. That's not that painful if you're wearing proper protection. Now, of course, on the road, if I fell off right now and slid, I'd slide into the grass, and if I'm going real fast, I'd slide into those trees, and I would come to a very quick and violent stop hitting those trees. That's where you break bones. That's where you really hurt yourself. So that's why they always say, you hear that, like, take it to the track type of mantra for motorcyclists that are riding really, really fast on the street. That's because if something happens, if you go around a curve and you lose traction, you're going to slide. You're probably going to low side. You're going to slide, but you're going to slide into something. You could slide into oncoming traffic, a car coming around the curve. You could slide into the trees. You could slide into just rocks. I mean, it just depends on your environment. And so that's not good at all. That's very, very painful. So the physics, and what I meant about physics with riding a motorcycle is, at any given time, your tires have 100% traction available to them. They have 100%. Think of it as a limit. At 101%, they start to lose traction. Okay? So if I'm leaned way over, I'm using up some of that 100% of traction. So in this little gentle curve right here, I'm not going very fast, going 40 miles an hour. Nice, easy, gentle curve. I probably used 15% of my available traction. I'm also accelerating. That constant acceleration that I'm doing, actually I'm not really accelerating, I'm just maintaining speed. That's probably using 5 or 10% of my available traction. And so what does that give us? 30%, 40%, something like that. That gives us 60% traction left over for unforeseen incidents, like crap in the road. It gives us a nice margin of error. So let's say there's gravel on the road, and the gravel only provides 50% of your regular available traction because, you know, your wheels are going to kind of skitter across it. Well, if I'm using 30% at the time that I hit the gravel, and then that takes another 50% of my available traction, I still have 20% left to my tires. That means I'm not going to go down. That's how you can ride around a curve through gravel and not crash, because you're not leaned over enough to be using up enough traction in the lean, because when you lean, your tires are biting into the pavement to keep your bike upright so it doesn't slide out from under you. And the further you lean, the more your tires have to grip that pavement to keep the bike from sliding out from under you. If you don't lean real far, then you've got a lot of leftover traction for all types of crap that you might encounter on the road. It might be a decreasing radius turn, which means the turn tightens up after you've leaned over, which is one of the #1 curves that will cause a crash. Certainly at the gap, that's all the time. And moisture on the road, gravel on the road, rocks that you have to suddenly lean over real fast to get around. So, things that you need to be aware of. I'll talk a little more about that. I'm going to take advantage of some of this open road. I'm going to just kind of get on it a little. Not gonna go too fast. You'll notice, this is bad. I forgot my damn riding pants and I got all the way to the mountains. I brought my bike up here. I wasn't gonna not ride. So I'm taking a risk, but I'm not gonna go near my limit today. I'm gonna go 7/10, 6/10, not 10/10. All right, so this is a decreasing radius turn. I'm gonna lean it, and then look, it's gonna tighten up right here. It gets a little tighter. So I had to account for that. If you charge into a fast curve that you don't know much about, and you're leaned way over using 80% of your available traction, and then you realize it's a decreasing radius and it tightens up even more and you have to lean over even further, are you going to use up the rest of that 20%? If so, you might crash. This one gets pretty tight. I'm not going to hit it very hard. There could be crap in the road. But what's fun about curves is turning it into a game. And what do I mean by that? If you're interested in not just seeing the scenery, and there's beautiful scenery up here. We're up in the higher elevations in North Georgia right now. But if I'm interested, and this is the Appalachian Trail I'm crossing right here, so I know that. I usually slow down because there's hikers crossing the road and everything. But if you're interested in actually making some decent progress through curvy roads, you can start working on hitting your apexes. And so what I mean by that is you start wide and then you come in to the double yellow. I'm going to start wide and I'm going to come in and then I'm going to accelerate out. And I kind of messed that one up. I got real close to the double yellow there. I haven't really warmed up yet, so that's a tisk on me for getting that close. But when you start working on your apexes, that's literally the fastest way around a curve. So I'm out here, and then I'm going to lean over, and I'm going to get in close to the inside, and then I'm going to come back out to the outside. That was the fastest way around that curve. I'm going to do it again here, and I'm not going to hit them hard. This one's actually such a moderate curve that I'm not even going to need to hit the apex there. It's more on the tighter curves that you worry about it. But notice when I start outside like this, especially on a tight curve, I can see around the curve for a longer period of time than if I start on the inside. So here's another one. I'm gonna hit this apex. There we go. Am I hitting them perfectly? Probably not, but I'm not a MotoGP racer either. I'm gonna hit it here. If I go out here to the outside of the curve, stay in my lane, and then lean it, that is going to be the fastest way around the curve, and then I'm going to come back out to the center of the lane. This one, I'm going to go to the outside of the lane, going to lean it, and I'm going to hit that apex, stay inside, and I'm going to lean it here, and out. And you can practice that, and you will not hit them all perfectly. I'm not hitting them all perfectly, but it's kind of fun, and that is how you can make relatively rapid progress through the curves and use up all of your lane and see ahead. Look, if I'm here, I don't have as much of a view as if I'm here as far as what lies ahead in a curve. Certainly going uphill is easier to make fast progress, because if you roll off your throttle, you slow naturally due to the incline. So you can gain confidence taking corners uphill versus taking corners downhill. See, now if I roll off, I'll continue to coast a ways. Some other things to think about as you work on your curvy road riding. You want to do all of your braking before you lean in. So I'm braking, let go, tip in, hit the apex, come back out. Braking, tip in, constant throttle. That's a decreasing radius, it's getting a little tighter. And then this one, I'm gonna swing out to in. You don't want to be on the brakes when you're leaning over. and you don't want to have to hit the brakes when you're leaned over. If you hit the brakes when you're leaned over, the bike is going to want to come right back up. It's going to want to stand up. I'll do it here. I'm going slow so I can show you what bad technique looks like. But I'm going to lean over, and now I'm going to see what happened right there when I hit the brakes? I'll do it again here. It just wants to stand straight up. So here we go. I'm going to start my lean. Oh, you see how I'm not trying to stand it up. I'm not putting any input in the bars to stand it up. That's just the physics. It's what happens. And so if you're trying to make corrections to your braking after you started your lean, then the bike is going to do some funny things. It's going to upset the suspension. Brake and tip. And then roll the throttle nice and gentle. And the harder you get on the throttle, the more traction you're using up, and the less available leaned over traction you have. Notice I'm going out to in to back out. I'm going to do it again here. So out, braking a little. This is a decreasing radius. Leaned over at the line, and I'm rolling on the throttle. All right, so other things that you can think about. When you're riding, you can stay centered on the bike the whole time if you want to. Nothing wrong with that. Very comfortable way to ride through the curves. But if you want to work on your body position, it allows you to make faster progress through a curve than if you're sitting straight up and down. So I'm sitting straight up and down here. I'm not moving around. And so it's allowing me to be comfortable, but I'm not making as fast a progress because you have less available traction to you when you sit straight up and down. And so what do I mean by that? The more my weight shifts towards the inside of the curve, I'll do it right here. I'm off now, and I'm leaned over. I don't have to lean the bike as far over because my weight is hanging way off the bike. My weight, the weight of the bike, think about it. If you put a 20-gallon jug of water off to the left of your bike's going to want to just lean that way because more weight is out there. And when you put your own weight out here, you'll initiate the lean, and the bike will stay more straight up and down, does not have to lean over as far when you put your weight out. I'm going to do it again. I'm going real slow here. And so, if you remember from earlier, what does that mean? Well, it means since my tires are not leaned over as far, the bike isn't leaned over as far, I have more available traction to my tires because the bike is not leaned over as far as when I'm sitting straight up and down. And if you don't believe me, go out and try it yourself. Some bikes are easier to do it on than others because some bikes, the seat isn't really made for you to be shifting your weight off of it. And so if your tires aren't using as much traction when you're leaned over, you've got more available traction for an emergency, for leaning over further. And if you lean over further, you progress through the curve faster. If you watch motorcycle racers, every single one of them leans off their bike because they want to progress through the curves as fast as they possibly can. You'll hear things, you'll read things if you get interested in riding kind of faster called kiss the mirror. And so I'm not going to do it here. This is an entrance to a real pretty trail. There could be cars turning in front of me, so I'm going to take my time through this one. But I'm going to try to kiss the mirror on this curve. I'm going to get real close. My helmet is going to get real close to the mirror, and I'm going to lean over and power through it. Here we go. Do this one. Leaned off, kiss the mirror, and I'm barely having to lean the bike here, but I'm making decent progress through this curve. So anyway, something to practice. It's not for everybody, and if you don't care about riding very quickly through the curves, then by all means don't do it. Do whatever makes you happy. But one thing you don't ever want to do is get going so fast that you blow your curve and you cross over. Okay? And so what I mean is, you don't want to be riding over your head. Let's say your buddy is a real accomplished fast rider, and so he's riding pretty quick pace and you're trying to keep up. And then you get into this one really hot and it tightens up, it's a decreasing radius, and you blow it. You cross over. I'm not going to do it, but you cross into the oncoming lane. That means that's a big warning sign. That means you're going too fast, you're not comfortable, you need to back off, because all it takes is a car coming around and it could be very, very bad for you. So I'm going to hit these. They're nice and open. I can see them. Those types of curves are nice because you can see through them. There's no crap in the ground. Kissing the mirror here, keeping the bike pretty upright. I'm probably riding about 6 to 7 tenths of my comfort zone. And so that leaves some room for road conditions that are unknown, for there to be some gravel, for there to be a patch of water. I'll be able to correct for that because I'm not riding over my head. I'm not riding at a speed that makes me uncomfortable. I'm not riding at a speed where the bike is barely hanging on. All right, so that was Richard Russell. I'm gonna turn the camera off now for a minute, and I'll get on another good road. I'll get on Blood Mountain here, which is a fun little ride, and we'll start it again. All right, everyone, starting to approach Blood Mountain here. Talk about a few things before it starts getting real curvy. Let's talk about traction again, because again, riding through curves is all about your available traction. Your tires make a big difference. Having the stickier your tire, the more available traction they have. So the more room you have for mistakes. Tire pressures can really impact how your bike handles. So if you want your bike to handle real quickly, so stand up and move back and forth with real quick inputs, then you're going to look for putting higher pressure in your tires. So mid-30s, high 30s for your tire pressures. If you want more available grip, but maybe a slightly slower handling motorcycle, you can go with lower tire pressures, maybe in the 20s. Why? How does that work? Well, if the tire flexes more, then more of the tire's surface can dig into the surface of the road and provide grip. The tire is rock hard from having a high pressure, high inflation pressure, then there's not as much surface of the tire that's digging into the road because it's so hard it doesn't give at all. So think about it this way: if you go out to your car tire and push in with your thumb, if it's inflated real high, it's going to barely give in. So not much of your thumb is going to be touching the tire because it's so hard. But if it's flat and you push it in, then your thumb will depress deep into the tire and a lot of the tire will be touching your thumb. That provides more friction, more available traction. But there's a point of, you know, limiting returns, I guess, where if it's too low, the bike will handle real sloppy. It'll feel real vague and wallowy because the tire is just shifting back and forth on the rim. It's not strong enough for it to be firm and provide a solid feel under your motorcycle. So it's completely up to you. I'm gonna speed up. I don't want this guy to get in front of me. It's completely up to you on what pressures you want to run, but what's cool is you could just tweak them. You could start your ride with high pressures and then halfway through lower them some and see if you like the difference. And then of course you want to set up your bike too, set up your suspension if it's adjustable at all for your weight and your riding style. I'm not going to tell you how to do that because there are plenty of good videos that show you how. Just Google setting up your suspension properly. All right, that car is way behind me. Let me show you another thing. I talk about gravel or water across the road while you're in a curve. How do you handle that? What happens if you see that while you're leaned over? What are you gonna do? Worst thing you do is you chop your throttle. So if I'm going and I suddenly see it while I'm leaned over, I don't wanna do that. That loads up the front tire, could make it wash out once you hit the water, once you hit the gravel. I'll show you right here what I do. So I'm gonna be leaned over in this curve, and let's say there's suddenly gravel. I'm gonna stand up for just a second and then lean over and continue my progress through the curve. I'm gonna stand up right when I pass through that water or that gravel. Let me show you again. I'm gonna be leaned over here. Let's say this driveway has gravel and I don't see it, oh, there's gravel. Stand up, then lean. It's a split second thing. You don't wanna stand up so long that you go into the other lane. That's not good. But what it does is it allows your bike to be more upright as it passes through that slick surface, and therefore your tires don't break traction because they're not leaned over. They're not gripping the road in a lean and using up a lot of their 100% of available traction in that lean. So that is how you pass through it. Now if it is a lengthy bed of gravel, you don't have enough time to stand up. But if it's just a spot of water, a spot of oil, a spot of gravel that's in your curve, that's probably the most typical type of obstacle you'll come across, then you can get away with leaning over. And the only way that really works is by using your whole lane. So here, I'll do it again here. Let's say in this curve, I'm leaned over, oh, there's gravel right there. Stand up, then lean over again. Take some practice, and you definitely don't want to just pass into the opposing lane. That would be not good at all. You're probably better off risking just leaned over through the surface and hoping your tires can grip. But it's something worth practicing. I'll do it going this direction. All right, I'm going to be leaned over, so it'll be a little faster speed. Leaned over, leaned over, leaned over. There's gravel. Stand up, then lean over. I stand up, what seems like a split second, but honestly, I probably travel 15, 20 feet while I'm stood up, which could be all that it takes to pass over a pocket of gravel or silt that you suddenly spot in the road in the middle of a curve. I'm going to do it again in this curve. Leaned over, oh, there's dirt, oh, there we go, lean back over. Do it here. All right, leaned over, oh, there's gravel, stand up, then lean over again. So it's worth practicing, and it can help you pass through a slippery surface that you suddenly spot in the middle of your curve. All right, so I'm going to step up my progress a little. I'm going to go through the gears a little. See that discoloration? I know that that is stained on the road. It's not fresh oil, but if this was my first pass on this road, you better believe I would be real hesitant to pass through that, especially at any type of lean. If you have oil on the road, oil could take 80%, 90% of your available traction. It is slippery, slippery stuff. So you could be leaned over just a slight amount, just like this. And it could be enough for you to go down if there's oil. If a car's oil pan bolt dropped out or something and it dropped a bunch of oil or coolant in the road. So let's look at this. I'm speeding up, and now I'm going to go down through the gears. You see that? That's called, and I did that a little bit in the last video, that's called rev matching. That is imperative for good progress on a curvy road, because if I don't, let's say I miss the rev match, all right? I'm going to downshift here. Oh. Did you hear it just kind of hit? Here, I'll do it again. All right, I'm going to downshift. Wait, hold on. I screwed that up. I'm so used to rev matching. All right. So let's say I just close the throttle and I downshift. You'll feel the bike jerk as the revs come up and hit. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to upshift. And now I'm going to close the throttle, downshift. You see those revs just suddenly pop. That's your clutch matching the revs with whatever gear you've selected. And if you go down from a third gear to a second gear, from a fourth gear to a third gear, those revs are going to be higher. Your clutch takes up the difference, but it's still going to cause the bike to lurch forward when you do that. Now, the new sport bikes have slipper clutches, so you don't have to worry about it. But most of the rest of us don't have slipper clutches. So you can either let like that and let the bike lurch forward when you shift, or you can rev match. It helps your clutch, it saves wear on your clutch if you rev match. And if you're leaned over and you have to change gears for whatever reason, let's say you come in and you're bogged, I'm bogged right now and I got to change gears. If I rev match, the bike is not going to lurch at all, and so therefore it's not going to upset my suspension, and therefore I still have all my traction, so it's not going to mess up my leaned over amount of traction that I have available. Plus it sounds good. So I'm going to do that. I mean, this bike has gobs of torque, so honestly I usually just put it in third gear and never touch it. But I'm going to go up and down through the gears here for a couple minutes just so you can see what it's like to go make progress through a curvy section of road, go up and down through your gears. You just feel like a racer. It's a lot of fun. So I'm not going to go too fast because again I'm wearing jeans, so I got to keep it within my very safe limits. I'm kind of using my whole lane, going back and forth, trying to hit my apexes. Rev match, apex, and apex a little early on that one, and apex, that was pretty perfect right there. Accelerate out of it, decreasing radius, rev match, lean off, kiss the mirror, uses little traffic. I kind of let off the gas just a tiny bit, not perfect because it causes the bike to move forward a little, but you know, it's never going to be perfect unless you're Ricky Carmichael or something. Coming across, using my whole lane, moving my whole body back and forth, kissing the mirror. Making steady, fast progress up this mountainside, but still riding within my limits. Gonna rev match here into the curve. Lean off, kiss the mirror. Lean off, kiss the mirror. Didn't go fast because there's a lot of rock faces here. There could be something that fell off. I need a lot of reaction time. But I'm still leaning the bike over, having some fun. I'm gonna shift to the next gear. And I'm going to downshift here and rev match it before I lean over. And off. And accelerate through. And off. And accelerate through. And off. And accelerate through. So that right there just gives you an idea of how to put all of that to play. Not braking into curves at all. I'm scrubbing my speed. Then I'm getting off the bike and accelerating through the curve. I'm gonna do it again. Braking, 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 off, accelerate through the curve. Braking, braking, off, slowly accelerate because it's a longer curve. Braking, braking, got a wide curve there. Hope I don't get rained on. It's starting to get a little overcast. Off the bike, trail throttle, not really on it, not really off it, just kind of maintaining. And I'm building my way up the hill. This is a tight curve. Rev match. Off. And accelerate. Hopefully you can hear the bike. Here we go. Rev match. Perfect. No lurch from the bike. Nice and easy throttle, accelerate through, off the bike, and still in my lane. Got to really slow down for this one because it's a tight. All right, y'all, taking a quick break. Camera died in the middle of that because my battery's almost dead. But I'm here at the top of Blood Mountain. This is the Wallasey mountain crossings at Wallasey Bunch of Appalachian Trail hikers pass through here. In fact, I just see a few with their backpacks right now, heading out, getting a lot more exercise than I am. Although moving back and forth on the bike gets you some exercise. But anyway, my battery's almost dead. That's probably a sign that I've talked too much again. And so it's time to sign off. But hopefully you learned a fair amount from this video. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback. And enjoy, you know, any types of curves that you can find, even in Florida, even if it's exit or entrance ramps to the interstate. Wherever you can find them, they're certainly a lot of fun on a motorcycle. Looking forward to hearing your feedback, and if y'all want to, I might do one last vlog riding in traffic, heavier traffic. I did a bit of that in my first one, but I didn't really stay on it too much. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Beautiful day. I'm going to go hit the backside of Blood Mountain and wind it on down. So take care and ride safe, y'all.